Welcome to the Comic Binge. I am your host, Paul Herman, and with me I have three special guests to go upper cosmic level of Marvel Comics, which the MCU has not really given us really much. Well, I guess you could say if I digress. I'm getting too ahead of myself. So anyway, lots of exciting things to talk about today. We're going to be talking about freaking yes, cosmic Marvel comic books. Super excited to talk about this one. And if you haven't already, please, y'all, just go and hit that subscribe button. Super appreciate it. Every like, every comment, every time you watch all the way through, get those watch hours up. It's all good. Super appreciate it. And yes, today talking about Adam Warlock comic books by the legendary Jim Starlin, which many of my guests, or the main regular host, you could say, are not unfamiliar with, which we'll start with the Reverend himself, Chris Clow. How are we doing, Chris?
Doing just fine, my friend. How are you?
God damn it. I'm glad you're doing well. I appreciate your Star Trekness. We will talk in a second about stuff. Next we have El Corazon, Javi. How we doing?
Good. I thought we were you said cosmic. I thought we were talking Green Lantern, or were we saving that for March because it's St. Patrick's and green and
March is booked out, but we can definitely do more stuff for Green Lantern. We need to. We both have the Kyle Rayner compendium, which is
perhaps Green Lantern Star Trek.
Ooh.
Huh?
I'm gonna save my time. I'm gonna save my time on that one. All right, so just gonna throw it out there. So, last but not least, I've got old rival, friend, Zach Gabriel. How are you doing, Zach?
Pretty good, man. How are you guys?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. So, for those who don't know, Zach picked out these comics from your reading today, and I know Zach. Yeah, Zach's to blame. Wow, we're getting into it. I got to know Zach through one of my best friends named Adam, which Chris, you know Adam. So that's how I know Zach, and we both love comics. We have been like every time we get together, I feel Zach like we annoy everyone around us when we just talk about comics for like 45 minutes. But I have a blast. I freaking love it. I mean,
I do too.
We just go on and on.
It's a rare occasion to like go that deep about comics, like in regular life. So yeah, I usually have to just be like, sorry to everybody else, but we have to talk about the Rob Liefeld Hawk and Dove series for a good chunk of time.
Yeah, by Carl Kessel, whatever his name is, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we got it. We have to. It has to happen. So it's funny because one day like we're at Adam's house. And I'm literally just like, me and him are just going on, like we're just going on and on about different runs and like Bill Mantlo Hulk, and I and everyone's like, this is like what in the like they're like they have no idea what we're talking about. So, and which is awesome. It's awesome because I knew you liked comics, but like we were like just trading like not like testing, but like we're just trading like, oh yeah, this and this. I'm like, oh yeah, this. It's really cool because people who know like certain things, it's nice to like you said, like go dive into it and appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, dude, I gotta get you on the binge and get your insight on some things. You gave me a laundry list of the stuff I love to talk about. Yeah, but the one that stuck out to me was one we're going to talk about today, and that is going to be Jim Starlin's very much influential, maybe I want to say underrated. It's pretty much people like it, who know it, but it's one of those things where people kind of forget about the importance, I think, of Jim Starlin as a whole, if that makes sense. It's like, yeah, we know he gets his own thing in what's it called in
Endgame.
What's the word I'm looking for? Endgame, yeah, or Infinity War. Yeah. It's crazy.
I was thinking of his because he has a cameo in the Captain America support group scene. He's like one of the guys in the support
I
group.
have the picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get it up here. 1 second here. I'm trying to get my brand of, got my, for whatever reason, it's not letting me. There we go. 1 second. Y'all. Let me get you all on the hijinks. But yes, we're talking about Jim Starlin, which is this scene right here, which we'll be talking about. And it's really cool because, yeah, in the support scene, he's there. And I think it's really great that the directors wanted to have him there because Endgame essentially and Infinity War and the whole Thanos saga predicates from this man's like vision, essentially. Like it's all Jim Starlin. Literally, and it literally begins you could say it goes from when he created Thanos, but in my opinion, much to probably Javi's chagrin, it really probably starts right here in Strange Tales. And so we start at Strange Tales 178 and goes to 181, which all this will be in the description below, as you'll see here, what we'll be talking about. And we're talking about Warlock 915, then Avengers Annual 7, Marvel 2-in-1 Annual number 2. Now, that's a lot to keep track of. And Javi, you complained about this a little bit when I first gave you the homework, right? And I don't think you're wrong.
But that's what part was I right about?
Well, because because it's all confusing, right? Because you go from Strange Tales,
okay,
and then you get to that thing, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes, then his all new adventure in issue 9, or like it starts here, issue 9. What starts here?
Well, it reminded me of The Flash because Barry Allen picked up from Jay Garrick's number, even though it had been some years between Jay's Flash. Then he was introduced in Showcase 4, and then he picks up with Jay's numbering. So Barry didn't have a number 1 until, was it after Infinite Crisis, Chris? Because it wasn't New 52.
No, it was
post Flash Rebirth, but not the DC Rebirth we just did.
Yeah, it was the 2010 series you're talking about.
Post Final Crisis, then.
Yeah, it was
crazy.
2010 right up to obviously Flashpoint, and then Reset, and then he got another number 1 right after that.
Yeah, but one of my things too is they don't. Yeah, Marvel doesn't have like the app itself. If I can chill for a second, like it's hard to navigate, and with like DC Universe Infinite, and if you have the Ultra, like you can get trades and graphic novels. So while Paul was reading it from his trade, that's all nice and well and good. I'm trying to like go through the Marvel app and like piece together what's in his trade and try and figure it out. It was kind of a hassle.
I did worry
if you search Avengers Annual in Marvel Unlimited, just the first search page, it's not even going to pull up the 1967 volume right away. Like you have to actually search a couple of different layers to actually find the series that you want. Whereas DCUI, it has a smarter search function, and I could search by a character and find reasonably obscure appearances of Mr. Mixie Spitlick if I want to, as long as you know how to spell it. So
yeah. and just for the record, I want to show and talk SH about Marvel because Zach, I had the trade, right? When Zach wanted to read these issues, I'm like, oh dude, I have this bad boy. I just got this like last year. Nice. Hell yeah. Nice. And this is a great trade. And I've said this to Javi, and this is me going on because you don't read digital comics really, I think, Zach. I've been telling you need to, because it's phenomenally accessible, and I love it. Right, I prefer it physical, but digital is the shit when it's done right. Now, what's crazy is that Marvel Limited predates DC Infinites, or as we like to call it, Infinites. Brian Lauer, I love you. It predates that by like 8 years, whatever it is, right? Like it's a long effing time. And you think like DC be behind the 8 ball. DC came in swinging with its big old you-know-what, being like, actually, we're going to take this by storm, and kicked its ass. Like literally, they came in, and like you said, Javi, you can go and search a trade. I can go in and search Batman issue 136, and it's going to give me every Batman 136 issue that's available. It is, if it's scanned in there, right?
Yeah.
So
good luck
Marvel,
trying to find the Amazing Spider-Man on the Marvel app, because you'll get
it's
a whole bunch of stuff that's Amazing Spider-Man. You have to type in, I think, the Amazing Spider-Man, but even still, to get to the main series, you've got to scroll down past the facsimile copies and a whole bunch of mini series. Like, no, I just want to read like Amazing Spider-Man 40.
It's bad.
You can't find it. Yeah, it's pretty miserable.
Bad. It is the most it's the most intuitive, the least intuitive search ever. Whereas DC Infinite is incredible. It's like the best. I couldn't ask for better. It is by far the best app, and it pains me.
Try searching for Punisher books on Marvel.
Oh God.
All right. Anyway, I'm gonna give the floor to Zach. So Zach, tell me why. I gave you a laundry list of things, but this was on there, and this one spoke out to me because I'll talk about it. What gravitated you towards this series initially?
Well, for me, like I said, when I was talking to Javi earlier, like, I grew up just reading like literally any comic I could get my hands on, like starting with like newspaper comics, graduating to like, then you find out about Batman. I was like born in 85. So Batman 89, was like the biggest thing that ever happened. So of course you're into that. Then just like everybody else in the 90s, like Spider-Man and X-Men, the whole thing. So I was just always reading Marvel and DC, and Warlock was always one of those characters where like when I was a kid, like the Infinity Gauntlet stuff was happening, but it was a little before my time slightly. So I just saw like the kind of after effects, the ripple effects. And I really liked like Quasar, just because I liked the costume. Yeah. And so you would always see those kind of like cosmic characters, like the Chaos and Order guys, the in-betweener, Galactus, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I knew Galactus, I knew some of that stuff, but I was just always like, who are these other guys? And it wasn't until like way later. I knew Thanos, and I think it was really honestly like finding out that the MCU was going to do like their own version of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. And I liked Starlin anyway, from just kind of random issues that I would read. And I just was always like, where did this stuff come from? Like, I just wanted to go back to the beginning. And I kind of found out it started in, the first like Thanos appearance is Iron Man 55, where Starlin was actually supposed to take over that book. But his one issue of 55 is so weird that they basically were like, you can't do Iron Man. You could do something else, but you can't do Iron Man. So he got shunted over to Captain Marvel, which wasn't, it was like, it wasn't too it was like, it was hanging in there, but it wasn't too popular. And that's where the first Thanos storyline really starts, is in Captain Marvel, like 25 to 34. And then, so kind of this, Warlock series is like, is almost a sequel to that a little bit. But it was kind of a combination of, wanting to like find out the history of like Infinity Gauntlet stuff. And then also I found, like I just showed you guys, like this is like the 6-issue series from 82.
Let me blow you up here. I want you to show that to the, here, let me, hold on. I'll get you on here. Oh, oops. All right. Wrong one. That's my fault. I'm sorry. That's just me. That's just my ugly mug. All right, here we go.
Trying to get the glare. Yeah. Okay. So this is like issue 1. So in 82, this is like prime shooter era, and Marvel was doing a lot of like special edition reprints. And as a collector, I always found that those were like a really good way to get like super crucial storylines on nice printing, good paper, and they're always like way cheaper than trying to get, like if I was trying to get Strange Tales 178 to 181, like I don't know, it's probably like $20 an issue. So you're spending $80 before you even get a quarter of the way through. And also the thing that Javi, you mentioned, is like totally valid. Like it is a really convoluted, weird, because like when it goes from 180 Strange Tales 181 to Warlock 9, the reason it says premiere issue, it's like, it's the first issue, but it was like there was a whole first 8 issues with Warlock that Roy Thomas did. We could talk about
that's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different podcast.
But this one is like completely different. So anyway, like I probably got this series maybe like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. And I remember reading it on like an airplane, like going to California, and kind of being like, man, I really like parts of this. And then some parts feel like really impenetrable. And it's also clear that like his original plans for the story were like changed because of, you know, as things were going on. Mm-hmm. But there's something about it. I think the artistry of it, like the page designs, the panel designs, the color designs, the new characters he introduces, it never left my mind. It made me keep wanting to go back to it every couple of years. And, you know, this last time reading it, I was like, I think I finally like vibe completely with Warlock's mental state as he's like going insane through this, whether that's just like the progression of life or the way, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, whatever it is, but yeah, it just is. It's a thing that like, it's always been intriguing to me. Cause it is like, it's just so unlike so many other Marvel comics. But there's some real like true inventiveness in there. And obviously it's just pretty cool to see like where the whole Infinity Gauntlet stuff comes from. You can see him figuring that out. Yeah. So
yeah, exactly.
That's kind of,
that's really cool. That's really cool. Cause that's great. Cause I think that's the thing. Like one thing you touched on, I thought was really cool. And I can 1000% relate. And I think we all can as people who read these, you know, the big two mainstream comic series, what makes them so fun when they're done right. And they're done right. Mostly I'd say for the most part, but like back in the day, I felt like they were more cohesive. I'm not trying to complain about current comics because I like a lot of current comics, but I felt like they were really embracing the past more and wanted to really educate people and fans. And it was nice because, you know, people say, well, I don't know how I can jump in. It's like, well, we could jump in back in the day because we could figure out through osmosis, right? Like, like I get it. Warlock is a good guy, has ties with Thanos, and we don't need to have the whole backstory to understand like they're still at odds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Starlin gives it to you every episode, every issue.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
But hold on,
but contextually, I think that makes sense because you got to think of like Strange Tales was coming out every 2 months, Warlock was coming out every 2 months, and then they had no way of knowing if anybody out there had the other issues, and they kind of just have to be like, okay,
it's this every comic is someone's first theory.
Exactly.
I don't begrudge
and that's totally
any
what
comic
they were
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't begrudge any comic now, whenever, if they do a recap page. Like I have no problem because you know what? God damn it. I don't remember half the things that happened in modern when I read a comic last month either. So I'm actually grateful when they redo things. So I mean, it's different when you're binging it like we did, and we're like, right, I get it, you know, it's different. So I give some, but I gotta tell you, this Strange Tales comic I thought was a fantastic history lesson, and I actually really appreciated the creative ways I thought for the most part that Jim Starlin would keep us up to date with Warlock and everything. So I did love that personally. Before we get into the main comics, I just want to touch on it because Warlock has been obviously introduced because of, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Zach,
Volume
what,
2.
I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, the cocoon.
Stop. You stop.
The cocoon.
Stop.
It's an Easter egg. You see his
Fantastic
cocoon.
465.
Oh god. Anyway, all right.
Actually,
go ahead.
I'm pretty interested to hear about this actually because I have not seen Guardians 3, so I would love to.
You haven't seen 3? Yeah.
No,
I was gonna go to you first. Well, then thank you for telling me before I gave it to you. First of all, Zach, I think Guardians 3 is really good. Like I mean, is this Adam Warlock you're gonna love? Probably not. Like it's not. Right. But at the same time, I know it. James Gunn knows his comics and his history.
Yeah, that's
clear.
Like
the guy's not dumb. Yeah, he's not dumb. And he knew that he can't just wake up out of let me preface it like this. He can't wake up out of a cocoon and just be like a super smart guy, and that's the thing that he really plays off of. Like he's kind of a dummy because he doesn't know anything.
Sure,
he's learning.
He's like a baby. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you go in knowing that, I think you'll enjoy the character because he's super powerful. Like he's not just like a dumb shit, like whatever. He's actually really powerful and strong, and he's smart, but he's just not experienced. And that's the thing that makes, I think, most people like who didn't like this character. Because I at first I'm like, I don't know about this. And I got to really like the character as it went on. And I actually appreciated the humor that he brought. Because I think by the time you get to the end of the movie, it makes a lot of sense. And actually, to be honest, ties in with his character from the comics even more so at the beginning, not really the Infinity Saga, obviously, but like more of like pre-Starlin, I would say. But
yeah,
anyway,
I had to wonder if that, just to interrupt you for a sec, if the Warlock in Guardians Volume 3 is indicative of like the Warlock that we see before the comics that we read for tonight. Because they hint at his immaturity in like some of the backstory that they give.
Yeah. Have you guys read the Roy Thomas era stuff?
No, this is outside of like Infinity Gauntlet and Silver Surfer. This is really the deepest dive I've done on this character. So
okay, yeah, I just read the Roy Thomas stuff like maybe 6 months ago for the first time ever. And just really briefly, it's almost like his version of like Jesus Christ Superstar. Like there's Roy Thomas. There's a separate Earth that the High Evolutionary makes that's on the opposite side of the sun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so he's like it's supposed to be a perfect world without evil, but then the man beast, like a bad, whatever, one of those High Evolutionary guys, he introduces evil, and then it's all about like Warlock, trying to like not purify, but just like trying to like bring peace to it. And yeah, it's a lot of it is about how innocent he is. And that's what they mentioned in the Starlin run, is like he was innocent and then he was like sacrificed, basically. He was not crucified, but like killed for the sins of that world. Kind of. Yeah. So just a little.
Yeah, and I think if you know that, and I think you'll be more forgiving of the character because of that. Honestly, Zach, because I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is fantastic. Like I think it's great, and I'm not a lover of Volume 2.
Okay, I didn't skip it because I didn't think it's not because I thought it would be really bad or something. I honestly like, I don't know how you guys will feel about this, but I just got like burned out on MCU movies.
That's fair, man.
Totally get it.
Like I loved so many of them for so long, and then I was like, I just need a break. Like they'll be there when I get to it.
You're not wrong. I mean, they're there. Yeah. I mean, like there's a lot. I definitely think Volume 3 is definitely worth checking out, though, for sure, because it tells a really good story. I think it's the best of the phases, I would say, of the overall movies. Did you ever see Shang-Chi? Did you ever see that one?
I saw that one. That was probably one of the last ones that I watched. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I would say it's about up there with that. It maybe neck and neck, because I like Shang-Chi a lot. Like I think the ending is the Shang-Chi one was, the ending's incredible, that movie. I think the middle lags a little bit for me.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think the ending is so good, it's like I don't even give a shit. That ending is amazing. But anyway, so Javi, what do you think of Volume 3's Warlock here quickly?
It wasn't the Warlock that I was familiar with, because like I said, like that, my Adam Warlock is like the Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity, whatever the other two.
Infinity War.
Infinity War and Crusade.
Yeah, Crusade. Yeah.
Like that's the Adam Warlock I know, and he's way more serious than the Will Poulter that version we got. But then I just kind of rolled with it because that's Gunn doing his own thing. Because like the Drax of those movies is not the Drax that I remember from this era either.
Oh yeah.
So I just took it all in stride and enjoyed it for what it was, and now I watch it and it's like, oh, this is kind of like maybe what he could do with like the fight scenes for Superman. Maybe this is like a little taste of what what's currently being filmed this week.
Oh wow,
that's crazy. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, really quickly, what I remember you liked this Warlock. We both talked about this, right? We saw it together.
Yeah, I didn't really have any problems with it, but I think that's also partially due to the fact that I am an initiate at best when it comes to the cosmic side of the Marvel universe. I hang my hat much more with the New Gods and the Green Lantern Corps than the Nova Corps and the Guardians of the Galaxy. But I mean, he serves a particular purpose in the story, and it helps to, I think, illuminate the audience's perspective about the forces that are at play in it. And it didn't seem too out of bounds in terms of what he could do. So I was fine with it at the end of the day. Although, my understanding of him was exponentially increased within the last 24 hours.
Did you read
so
last day?
What's that?
Did you read the entire series in one day?
Yeah, because Paul didn't send me the issues beforehand, so I had to.
That's such bullshit. You know I did. I sent it to you a while ago.
No, look through our text history and look for them. Look in the Twitter threads that involve other people in the bin. Look at the other message services that we have used. It's nowhere.
I'm too lazy.
I looked through all. You don't have to. I looked through all of them, and they weren't there.
I wish I'd known that. I would have given you like a full reading order, like typed out in like an Excel sheet.
Yeah,
or something.
no. I just took a picture of this basically and was like, here you go. So
it worked. Also, interestingly enough, the Marvel database has this saga has its own section there as the Mega Saga. Everything's laid out there too.
Oh yeah.
It was February 15th at 9:38 in the a.m. Central Time, buried underneath all the Suicide Squad talk and Paul, you need to play Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2 talk, and Blu-ray.
Thank you.
Doom talk. It was Thank there, you. Buddy.
Wait, Paul was doing some Blu-ray talk. That doesn't sound normal.
It was 2 weeks ago. Briefly mentioned in the middle of a broader conversation, and we have probably already moved on by the time I was able to check in on that conversation.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I just for the record, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, it's different, but I do feel like they've made steps to make Adam Warlock more serious, which I think Bolter will do a good job of, honestly. So going back to this main story, I'll just kind of overview of kind of everything as we read here, and I'll throw it to Zach, and then I'll throw it to the other guys what they think. This was interesting because I have a pretty decent history of Adam Warlock because I grew up, basically reading Marvel only, and my brother brought home the not all the issues, but he brought home most of the Infinity Gauntlet issues, and my brother was reading Silver Surfer 2 at the time, so I had like Starlin, Ron Lim, George Perez, together making sweet comic love, basically. And I ate it up. And what's crazy to me, I want to throw this out there. Oh God, Annihilation. I actually like Annihilation. The first one's
comic love.
What's wrong with that?
I mean.
That's a t-shirt, man. That's a t-shirt. That's a comic binge t-shirt.
Dude, I always forget George Perez drew Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah,
it's so crazy. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Half
it's like start.
Oh, that's right.
Was
it the first 3 issues?
Wasn't it Ron Lim who finished it off?
I think so. I think you're right.
Did Ron Lim do double duty?
Dude, Ron Lim is a machine, man.
He was a beast, man.
Cranked out
he was, dude.
Silver Surfer, Captain America, Spider-Man Unlimited, like all during that era.
Oh yeah,
dude, it's right. Yeah, because I forgot. Did he do Unlimited? Well, Unlimited was bi-monthly, so like it wasn't like he was doing it every month, but still.
I mean it was a big issue because especially when it was Maximum Carnage.
Oh yeah,
and not only that, like there's artists today who can't even do like 19 pages on time. So I mean, it's like, but
they have to draw the boots so much more detailed. God. You know that meme?
You saw that, oh, dude, that was
that goes around like every couple of years.
Bro, it's so true though. It's so true. It's like, good.
I was gonna say my thing about that is like, look. That 2011 boot or whatever, that's a beautiful boot. But the 1979 one, that's way more of a comic I want to read because it's in motion. It's like it's got life to it. You know what I mean? Like it. There's something to be said for super detailed stuff, but then there's something to be said for just like dynamic, like powerful Buscema style drawings. You know, that's my take on it.
Well, and here's the thing: if you're fast and you can do detail, do it.
Yeah,
but that's the thing about, at least again, I'm not an artist, so I can't say shit, right? But what I can say, as someone who's read comics and has like studies it, like and reads about it, and here reads artists talk about the back in the day, and from like you're talking like from oh my god, Will Eisner to like cartooning to all those people from back in the day to to like the mid 70s to the the Bronze Age. What were they doing? And Starlin's no different. They're picking their battles of when to put detailed panels and to not draw the background and just leave it blank and have the artist color a full primary color behind it. This is not rocket science, like you don't need it. Like anyway, I could go on for hours about this, but anyway,
that's a different stream.
That's a whole different stream podcast completely. I say it all the time. Now when I was a kid, I obviously knew who Silver Surfer was. I love the cosmic stuff. And my brother brought home this comic book. Very interesting. Yeah. The differences of how I'm assuming Ron probably is a fan of this Strange Tales 118 comic book because it's basically not that one for one, but it's pretty like on the nose center wise. It's like it's literally in the center.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with Adam Warlock through the stuff. And I love the character, and it's amazing to me, Zach, that these two issues are directly connected to what we read directly. Like, yeah, because basically which is awesome. And it's obviously this is written by Starlin. Starlin has a fantastic Silver Surfer run that obviously ties into Infinity Gauntlet, but it's great. And it all starts in this Strange Tales comic book that we get. And what I love about it is Starlin, as he's telling the story, again, this is a great example of a layout flash, catching the reader up to everything, which eventually in Strange Tales 118, it tells you all the appearances that Warlock was in right before. Yeah. It's like, dude, where is this in modern comics? Anyway,
I loved that when I first read this because I didn't know anything about like him starting out as him in like Fantastic Four or fighting Thor or whatever. I didn't know anything.
Vaguely, I knew he had the cocoon, and it started with it's not Pegasus. What's the program it's called? I forgot it's called.
Oh yeah, it's like a secret like cabal of scientists.
I always think it's Project Pegasus, but that's not it. That's a different.
That's
thing.
different.
Yeah. That's a whole. That's the Marvel 2-in-1, whatever that is. Yeah, but so as I'm reading this, I also know that the character we get that's revealed here, the Magus, whatever you want to call it, he's directly connected with Infinity War.
Right.
So, so it's really interesting that all this is set up. Sets up everything in the 90s, the cosmic stuff that they obviously use a good chunk of this in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the Infinity Saga. It's basically Starlin.
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I mean, I already knew that, but like this is the seed of it right here, right? And it's amazing to see it be played out, how Pip the Troll's introduced. Like, I didn't know Pip the Troll was introduced through these comic books. And Gamora, I forgot that Gamora was involved in this. Because as I'm reading this, and I'm like, yo, like, Gamora, okay. And then she's like, let me talk to my master. I'm like, oh, well, of course, it's got to be Thanos. So it was really cool to see Starlin kind of like usher in this whole thing and get to see it play out. I just want, before I pass off to other people, I just want to say that Magus, whatever, when Abnett and Lanning brought him back in their run for Guardians of the Galaxy, that's when I felt the title went a little bit, in my opinion. I didn't like it. And I've only read it once, and I really liked the Abnett and Lanning stuff too. So like when that happened, I was like, Adam Warlock's Magus now? No, because I love Adam Warlock, so maybe that's my. And I'm not a huge fan of this character, this whole thing, which I'll get to that in a little bit. But so when I see him there, I'm like, oh, this is where that mother effer came in. Okay, kind of a thing. Like that's okay, whatever. But that being said, this was an absolute delight for me to read, because to me, Starlin is a phenomenal comic storyteller. The layouts that this guy does, because obviously he's because it says he does the layouts and the colors, so there's someone else finishes. So he does the primary legwork of everything. And that's why the art kind of varies, and it took me years to figure out what the hell that meant, like layouts by Ron Friends, finishes by artists that never made it in comics afterwards, basically. It's like Friends, basically, let me tell the story for you. You just finish it for me. It's like, okay, cool. And there's a reason. Starlin's a good writer. He's a good storyteller. He knew visually how to make it interesting. And it's evident through this entire, in every comic he does, whether it be Batman, whether it be whatever the hell. He is a master comic storyteller. He's a great artist himself, knows how to design his things, and knows how to tell a story, because he can use a splash page like you're supposed to. It's good to have action splash pages, but when you can do a splash page and have word balloons, captions, and it's set up cinematically, and that's the thing about Jim Starlin. I think that maybe, obviously, like people like Alex Grant and comic book historians and other people who are way smarter than me and know comics more than me can tell you, this is obvious. But Jim Starlin and part of the Bronze Age are these writers and artists that really start figuring out, I can make comics more cinematic, in a sense of like, not just your 9-panel grid, which give me, Lord knows, if you've watched the show before, I love me a 9-panel grid more than just about anybody, but the cool thing is Starlin, shows in George Perez and all these artists that came about in the 70s and the early 80s that you can make a comic book like a movie and have it be very, very dynamic and interesting, and embrace the idea of like, hey, here's a splash page, but you can also have the pages like this that really give you, I love this. To me, this all screams Will Eisner to me. But anyway, yeah, the layouts by Starlin are out of control. Great. You get the classic comic stuff like this, but then you get great stuff like, look at this. Like this is what makes comics special, because you can do basic stuff that's great, like 9-panel grids, and then give me crazy weird shit like this and have black panels with words on them, and I'm eating this shit up. So I think Starlin's, he's an icon. I have the Dreadstar digitally. I need to buy it physically. I need to go buy this right now. It's ridiculous. I forsaked it for too long. We need to read it, but I'm curious, and Zach, I'll probably say like when we do an overview for you last, because you kind of went first here. I'll throw it to you, Javi, because I know you're a little bit critical of this. It seems like a little that you're giving out the vibe anyway. But what's your take here?
Well, since I threw Chris under the bus about the whole when you told us what the issues were,
goddamn right.
I knew what it was, and I didn't start to read these until yesterday. So because of that, and I was trying to get through this, and it was my fault too, because I know when you get comics from this era, it's going to take longer to read than
they're dense, man.
I could read 3 current Brian Michael Bendis comics in the time it takes to read one of these Starlin comics from the 70s. So I was rushing,
and that's not bad, by the way.
It's not bad. I like Bendis, but like the recaps, it's like I understood they were from the era, but I'm like, dude, I just read this 15 minutes ago.
I just skip them. Like
I'm just trying to go through, but the way he imparts the information though made it worth me sitting through it again, because just to appreciate the layouts and how he was telling the story, because it's different every time. He doesn't have just the same old like trope of it. Like there's different perspectives from who's giving it.
True. Yeah.
And like I said earlier, like my primary knowledge of him came from like Silver Surfer, and the Infinity Gauntlet. So actually, once I got done with all these today and I had some time left, I jumped right into like that Silver Surfer stuff. Because that's exactly, it's funny that you mentioned your brother, because back then I had a subscription to Amazing Spider-Man and my brother had the subscription to Silver Surfer. Nice. Right at this era. So it was kind of cool to go back and be like, oh, 30 years later, like it all makes sense now. Like I know who these people are. So the more I got into it, the more fun I had with it and the more I enjoyed it. But it at the same time, it was also, I guess, interesting to me because I wasn't quite expecting the level of emo. And I've always kind of thought of him as more of a, I don't know, just a more benevolent figure. And there's a lot of
stoic figure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pathos to this whole arc. The whole thing of what the soul gem or the vampire gem, as they call it sometimes, caught me off guard because he's killing people. At first, it's not intentional, but it becomes that. Yeah, so I was surprised to see him so wrathful in a lot of these stories. But Starlin's a really good storyteller, and he winds up making it compelling. And to kind of see like it bounce around like 4 different comic titles, this huge arc, that when it all comes down to it, it came down to Spider-Man at the end. Like I kind of dug that. I kind of had a lot of fun with that. But then there were other things like, because when I think of Magus, I think of Infinity Crusade. And this is not how he looked. So we get that first reveal, and I texted you guys, like, why does he have this afro? And like, I don't understand what's going on here.
It's fine.
No, dude, he looks like a clown. And it's not only that, but then we go to a freaking clown planet where they're trying to turn Adam Warlock into a clown because it's all part of brainwashing him. Yeah. And I couldn't get with that depiction of him. He looks ridiculous. Flat out.
Agree, disagree.
Yeah. And there was some, interesting dialogue, like Pip saying this is more fun than brown eyeing. I don't know what that means. Other than yeah.
By the way, Javi, really quick. Yeah. I wanted to say this. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but there was a lot of innuendo in this one.
Yeah,
and that specific issue.
This one, I was like, he literally says, "I can't wait to come," but T-O-M-E, and I was like, "God damn it, Jim!"
Yeah.
God damn it!
Hey, nobody else was doing that back then. You got to give him that.
No, they weren't. Right, they weren't. That's why I mean, or whatever. I mean, like, I was like,
Jim Starlin is the Mae West of comics. Right?
And as Eric just brought up, there is this whole Wizard of Oz thing going on too, which I guess I wasn't quite as invested in the story because I was thinking to myself, like, why does he know this Earth movie reference? I'm like, well, I guess if he's part of Adam Warlock and Adam Warlock went on Earth, maybe he knows it. But I had to think about it for a second, and I had to give myself my own no prize for it. But I mean, overall, I did like it.
Cool.
And yeah, like that's a really good cover.
The cover,
but yeah, you have to think though, like there's just, as Paul would say, there's some bonkers stuff. Like Adam Warlock fighting a great white in space. We go there.
Guys, okay, we will.
And not to spoil it, but the end of that issue with the Star Stealer or whatever he was called,
Star Thief.
Like, wow,
the Star Thief.
That got dark,
guys,
man.
Dude,
wow.
we're gonna cover Star Thief. Don't worry, we're gonna get there. So, if you mind, Javi, I'll throw it to Chris. Chris, what's your take on? Yeah, what's your take on the good old this whole thing you crammed and binged in one day? At least you kept the brand on brand. Binged it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I live up to the title whenever and wherever possible.
Goddamn right.
I just didn't have a lot of time anyway, so it was Just anyway, I like these. I had fun with them. I mean, I think I started to lose a little bit of the plot, and maybe it was because of the speed I was reading it at, but I started to lose a little bit of the plot by the time we got to the Avengers annual, because it seemed a little haphazard, but the issues before that were actually laid out very efficiently. And I mean, they're beautiful books, and I appreciated what I actually did. Zach, you'd probably appreciate this. I know Hobby would, and Paul absolutely won't. I got very much a Star Trek TOS vibe from several of these issues.
I can respect that. I don't think it's bad. Legitimately, I think that's a fair. I think that's a fair thing here. Yeah, honestly,
like, you know, a morality tale about the dangers of groupthink and of falling into a kind of dogma that can blind people to the point where they commit atrocities. That seemed kind of out of a Dorothy Fontana, David Gerald Star Trek episode to me. So I had fun with those components of it, and I thought that it had something to say, which is always good. You know, one of the things that I don't know if it's necessarily a problem, but whenever I read comics from this era, it always takes a little bit of adjustment to get back into the swing of the way that dialogue, the cadence of dialogue just functions differently than it does now. But you could also argue that, well, I mean, his Marvel method is definitely a part of it, but you could also argue that the dialogue often leads with emotion during this time. So what the story wanted me to come away with, I think, is totally what they led with in terms of the emotion that was pushed into the dialogue. So it was actually a pretty easy adjustment in comparison to some other books that I might read from around this time. And the canvas that it tells the story on is just so sweeping and broad that it doesn't really matter if there are lapses in a perceptible kind of logic or internal logic of the story, because all bets are off. You know, that's the fun of cosmic storytelling generally. And you could tell that the creative teams of these issues had fun with that. You know, they were kind of blazing a trail. You know, I don't have a great understanding of the early history of Thanos, but I had enough of an understanding to know that when he was revealed as Gamora's master, which I clearly knew was coming anyway, you know, they give it the nice sort of spotlight that they clearly want Thanos to have going forward. So, you know, it was easy to tell that this was a pretty early on the ground Thanos story, but I think that's why I appreciated his appearances in it as much as I did. And it does give a lot of credence to some of the traits that I have just always associated with Thanos, particularly his obsession with death. You know, he even alludes to his love of death in that very first reveal, even though, you know, it doesn't have nearly as much meat on the bone as it's going to later. So, and then in terms of Warlock himself, I mean, like I said, I mean, the characters are pretty much a blank slate with me. So, I appreciated, I think, the struggle the most. Like, it seemed like it had kind of an early Spider-Man-ish vibe, just with the volume turned way up, you know, in terms of the kind of conundrum that he's faced with and how he has to reconcile, in this case, who he will be with who he is now. And those kind of an enemy within TOS vibe. So a lot more Star Trek references than I thought I was going to get out of reading these, but no, I had fun with it, and I can certainly appreciate the building blocks that were laid down.
Yeah, Zach, before I throw it to you, I just want to say that this page right here is a great example of more of a cinematic, in my opinion, cinematic feel for comics, because you don't really get a lot of the stuff where it's like static images, but like using it purposefully in a very like interesting way to keep movement going, but also add drama. One thing that he loves to do which I love when they do this too. When any artist does this, is they'll do like the classic like 3 panels, but it'll be a close up. Every panel will be closer up to like to the face. So I'll have a medium shot of like broadly of their shoulders, and then they're saying something, and then it goes closer to tight to their face, and then it goes even tighter to the third panel is even tighter to add to the intensity. Like that is cinematic, and I love marrying that into comics, which I feel the Bronze Age, like Jim Starlin and their company, do a phenomenal job of. And I think this page is a great example of that, but example of just embracing using the panel layouts and storytelling to add drama and tension, opposed to just like, I have to keep pushing the story forward. It's like, which is good. You need that, but you need to give it a little bit more emotion. And I think the Bronze Age artists really do that well, obviously, or get that kind of ball rolling, obviously, in comics. Zach, revisiting this, I know I don't know if you read it recently, but yeah, give me your overview of like your thoughts, and I know you like it, but yeah, just kind of art and characters and whatnot.
Yeah. I think I read it over a couple of weeks, the last few weeks. And I totally agree with what you guys are saying about like, if you are reading it like in a chunk, like those recap pages do become like kind of a hindrance. But I also agree, like Starlin is always doing something cool with it. Like maybe it's just, a ton of vertically stacked panels, and then it's all the text on the other side. So you really can, if you want to, just look at all the images and be like, oh yeah, I remember that stuff,
Yeah,
exactly.
Word.
Yeah, for me, like kind of like you were saying, Paul, like nowadays, like I have so much, you're an adult, you have so much like BS going on in your life that I do need those recaps. If it's like a week later, I'm like, yeah, that's what happened in that issue. Okay, great. Like that's actually really helpful for me. And I like that as much as I love like X-Men, like Claremont era X-Men, it's a little bit better than having just like the characters be, just say what happened. Like, and of course now, we are free from fighting like the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, they just like talk about it and just like no one would ever do in real life. And I get that it's a convention, but yeah, I think Starlin's recap pages are more kind of artfully put into the main narrative. So yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I actually really like what you're saying, Chris, about the Spider-Man comparison, where this is almost kind of like a psychedelic version of the same thing, where it's a guy wrestling, with his own character, basically. And they just make it literal by having that evil version be the Magus. And yeah, the Thanos too of it, I like, you really see like Starlin fall in love with Thanos, like, as a character, because it's just like he knows how charismatic he is, and even though he's like a bad guy, it's like he's so fascinating. Like, why does this guy do what he does? Like, why does he want to kill everybody? And yeah, it's because like, yeah, he loves death, but it's just also he's just such like a fascinating character. So that's always great. Yeah, I do think like you can see there's something there where it seems like up to like issue 11, where it's like the strange death of Adam Warlock, where he sees that his future self die. It almost, to me, I'm always like, it seems like maybe this was supposed to go longer or something like that. Like that,
yeah.
And then he goes into the Star Thief stuff, which I do like too. But when I first read it, I was kind of like, I was like so vibing with everything building up to this, like this crazy point. And then it kind of goes down, but I don't know. As I've read it and reread it, this is maybe like the 4th time I've read the whole series. I want to say, yeah. So it definitely feels pretty comfortable to me now. And I don't think you guys read this issue, but there's a Marvel team up number 55 that is actually Warlock and Spider-Man, and it kind of fills in a little bit of the gap between the end of like Warlock 15 and then the Avengers annual 7, like not entirely, but you kind of, because it's not even by Starlin, it's Mantlo Byrne, Bill Mantlo, John Byrne issue.
Mantlo,
yeah. Okay. But it's they're on the moon, and then the stranger is involved, and so that's kind of the first time you see like other gems, like other guys with like gems that will become the Infinity Gems, but they're not called that yet. So it kind of yeah, exactly. It kind of fills in a little bit of the gap there, which is actually included in the Warlock miniseries that I have.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool they did that. Yeah. And And then, I wanted to mention one other thing too, that the clowns, the Planet of the Clowns.
Oh,
I don't know if you guys knew this. If you do, like, it's tight. But so a lot of those clowns are all meant to represent like the Marvel like bosses, basically. Like the clown, the main dude on the cover, his name is Len Teens, which is an anagram for Stan Lee. And wow. So it's basically Starlin kind of, I think people could take this in a way where it's like, oh, this is kind of just like a cheap, like he's just trying to go like anti-establishment or whatever. But I think it's more like he's frustrated by the convention, like just kind of the workplace environment, like anybody would be. We all have gripes about that kind of stuff. And he just figured out like a way to like weave it into the story. Another one is there's the clown who like paints Adam's face and says like, I like his eyes, but I don't like anything else. And his name's Jan Hatrumi, which is another anagram for John Romita, because at that time Romita was the art director.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so he would redraw stuff that he didn't like, or they didn't feel like fit the Marvel house style, and that all leads up to that part where there's like that really valuable substance in the garbage, and it's like the Stan Lee anagram is like, oh yeah, a couple of those sneak into the garbage all the time. We try to get them out, but we can't. It's like, even though they want it to be this like just digestible product, some real art comes out now and again, And I think that's like that's like still something that happens, is like, the corporate kind of machine, and it's way stronger now than it used to be. So it's like, it's even more relevant in a way now. But yeah, there's still like, beautiful gems that come out every once in a while. I just thought that was like a really powerful point. And then, did you have a
no, please.
Oh, okay. My other thing, I really love that the second issue, I think it's 179, the Death Ship, where he fights that General Autolycus, and that's the first time. Like, I love that because it's kind of like what you're saying, Javi, where you see him kill a guy, but it's not because he wanted to, and he's obviously extremely conflicted about it. So it's a cool, when probably all of us were kids, like the 90s extreme era, you would see comic characters kill all the time, and it was just supposed to be like, oh, this is badass. But it's really great to see how he has to like wrestle with this, and then is tormented by the fact that the soul gem doesn't just kill Autolycus. It takes all his memories and everything that he is, and now that just lives within Adam, from then on. And they even allude to it, because at the end, when Adam dies, he goes into the soul gem and he sees all his former enemies there, but they can all get along. That. Yeah, that's like really cool to me, where it's like, no one's trying to hurt anyone. We can all just like live in peace because we're all part of the same thing. And that is like super deep. It's like, it's kind of amazing to think that like a stoned teenager from 1976 would be reading that. I love that, man. I love when like real kind of like deep shit can come in the guise of popular art. And you don't even have to worry about that stuff at all. You can just go on a wild ride, but if you want to think about it, it's there. So,
I think all that, and there's a lot of that obviously in the Bronze Age, because you have all these hippie writers, or post hippies, whatever you want to call it, coming in and just really having a lot. They have the freedom because no one takes comics seriously, and it's because the direct to market is non-existent, and then all they have is space on drugstores and 7-Elevens and whatever, what have you. That's just having comics and product out there for them to to get out there. That's why these all exist, and they just need to get it out there on time. And they're just like, yeah, cool, like get it out there, keep it going. It's amazing that how well these are structured, like you're saying, and like how they can sneak these deeper meanings in here. That there's a lot of writers that they can write fun stories, but they're just fun stories. That's it. But a lot of these writers like Conway, Ween, Starlin, obviously, wouldn't put Roy Thomas in there. Sorry, Roy. But that's just me. And I know Roy's written some good stuff, but I just haven't read a lot of it, to be quite honest. But there's a lot of great writers from the Bronze Age that like really took the comic medium serious and knew the power of it, and they pushed that along. And Starlin, I think, is evident. Like he loves it. And what's interesting about, I think, this too, is that this also, if you're confused why it starts in Strange Tales, to goes to Warlock's main series and these annuals, it's because Marvel also wanted to wrap up storylines, and they like, oh, we got to finish the storyline, so let's like Chris Claremont and John Byrne's Iron Fist is another great example of that, where like that starts off in, like, if you read the Iron Fist series from the 70s, it stops and it gets completed in Spider-Man Marvel team up issues. It's like, what? Why does that? And it's because it gets canceled, and they want to, and these writers have so much power still that they give them an outlet to, like, let's finish it up. We want to get another annual in. So, hey, Jim, finish your thing through this. That's why he's like, okay, I'll wrap it all up, and you get Marvel team up, 2-in-1 team up here. And it's really interesting that it's just a product of its system of the 70s and the comic business, unfortunately. But it also is a really interesting story structure and format to have it wrap. How do you wrap that up, like, efficiently? And these writers figure it out. And they use different methods, like guest stars, how, incorporating, like, that's how we do it. And it completes it. And I feel like, even though this is Adam Warlock's issue 15, or I think it's issue 15. I apologize if it's not. 15. This is the last issue. It's cool that he gets his arc and gets completed, and he has an ending by the time we get to Spider-Man, which Jim also, he was just burning up to do this eventually, which I love, which is great, because it basically ends here and starts right back up here. Because you can literally start or stop it there, like we were talking, Javi, and pick it up, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it is, 20 years later, and here it is.
Yeah, almost 20.
And yeah, it's amazing. And just a couple things we're going to wrap up here. I just want to say, and please, I'm not saying I know a lot about Spider-Man. I'm not trying to brag. I know a lot. But Javi, stop me if I'm wrong. Stop me if you heard this one before. It's a reference. I love you.
I got it.
That's just a common sense. Yeah, thank you, Zach. I knew you would get it. No, is this Spider-Man's first shot into space in continuity? Marvel team ups. Hold on. Because second issue, is he in space in the first issue with the aliens?
Oh, in Amazing Spider-Man?
Amazing Spider-Man 1?
No, that's all on Earth, I think.
That's what I thought.
I mean, he was like they were still in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Right. So this is this his first comic adventure? Because in Marvel Team Up, he fights Kang and shit, but it's like different dimensions. So I don't really count that.
He goes to the moon, like I was saying, in 55 to meet Warlock. But I think this is, I mean, it's, even if it's not, it's clearly like this is the first time where it's like, I might get killed by an alien on a spaceship. What's
that? What's that?
That's the one that Zach was mentioning.
55.
The Marvel team up 55. Yeah, he goes to
the but he's trained. But how soon? How far apart are these issues, Zach? Do you know, like, when the Marvel Team Up annual came out?
Yeah, Team Up is between the end of Warlock, which I think is in 76, and then the Avengers and 2-in-1 annual are both in 77. So I think it's just in that year between. So yeah, and it really, even though he's on the moon, he's in the blue area. It's basically like a garden. It's really not in space. Yeah. So this, I feel like, I think you're right. I think this is like the first true, like, cosmic Spider-Man adventure.
He gets into a spaceship and flies into space like that. I don't know if I told you, Zach, but I haven't picked up in a long time. I've been reading Spider-Man like chronologically, story wise. So I went I read Amazing Fantasy 15, then I went 16, 17, 18 by Busiek, obviously, and Untold Tales with Stanley. But I'm going through like Team Up, Spec, Web of. I'm in the 90s currently.
Wow.
So I didn't read all the guest appearances. I for whatever reason didn't do that. So as I'm reading this is the first time I read it, and I went, wait a minute. This, I think, and I knew Team Up might be because I did not love Team Up a lot, to be quite honest. It was rough. Mantlo, we talked about that before. Mantlo does some nutty stuff in there. I thought this might be Spider-Man's first shot into space, like straight up. I'm like, I don't remember Spider-Man doing any of that. ever.
It might be. And also, that was another, you brought up a good point. Like, I think just as like a character moment, Spider-Man and the Thing just like having coffee and talking about like this problem is like, and when it shows the Thing, he's reading Salem's Lot by Stephen King.
Like, yeah, that was great.
I love that kind of stuff. Like anytime you see like a superhero doing normal person stuff, I think is like such a beautiful moment in comics. So just like seeing the two of them talk like old buddies, a great way to start it. And then having it be like the first true like cosmic Spider-Man is like such a cool way to even though it's not a Spider-Man story, just like might as well throw him in there. It works.
Right. And I'll wrap up here just by saying that like I will say these last two Avengers, or excuse me, these annuals that he wraps everything up on are really enjoyable, and the art and the layouts are just, I talk about again that cinematic feel that really drives home on these annuals. He really brings it up because I mean, look at this is just a beautiful page of action, just close. It obviously had the anchor here with Thor and Thanos duking it out. And then you have like this great shot of them in space. Like just again, like look at the way the panels are really slim. Just like it's dynamic, it's interesting, it draws you in, but it's not, again, the anchor is again above. And I love this action shot of like Thanos is blowing. Oh God, this is beautiful stuff, man. And just again, you're seeing that whole idea, like he's really using the medium to his advantage here. I just love it, man. It's fantastic.
That's like Infinity War vibes right there.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And this is what makes comics special to me. And Starlin really tapped into that. So, as we wrap up here, Chris, any final thoughts on all this?
Don't sleep on this stuff because I think it might be a little too easy to be overlooked. Considering its age and some of the other more recent developments that more recent creators have taken with Thanos. What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
Sorry, that was my fault. That was producer error, whatever you want to producer. You know what I mean? Sorry, okay. I apologize. Continue.
I think that these are pretty accessible stories, all things considered, at least if my experience was any indication. And I mean, we talked a little bit about the recaps, and maybe they feel a little bit asinine if you are breezing through this with the speed that we did, but that adds to their accessibility. And there is some additional historical context that the recaps give that don't necessarily appear in some of the actual pages of the previous issue you just read. So and there's also references to issues included for previous stories involving the events that are recapped. So it's actually, I find it pretty helpful, especially as someone who doesn't have an overabundance of understanding of this era of certainly cosmic Marvel. But even characters, beyond the core of Avengers and the X-Men, this is fun, and I think that if your curiosity for Adam Warlock was piqued, particularly by his appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, give these a shot because it does a good job of laying down exactly why he's a force to be reckoned with, but it also does perhaps a surprisingly good job of illustrating where his pathos comes from. So yeah, I recommend them.
Last thing I want to ask you, because I know you have a fondness or you have a familiarity with Starlin because of Batman. Did this? I mean, you liked Starlin, I'm assuming before this. But did this kind of cement more of like I need to get more into Starlin stuff, or like it's just more of kind of like the same what you're used to with Starlin? Because I don't think he drew much Batman besides writing the character, right?
No, maybe he drew a little bit, but he primarily collaborated with Jim Aparo on whenever
creating the KGB Beast.
Yeah, among others.
Yeah, whatever.
Among other things. 10 Nights of the Beast rules.
Yeah.
Which one?
I think primarily this just speaks to his range,
Yeah.
His ability to tap into key elements of the emotion, because nerds like us love and get caught up with the particulars of the universes that these characters inhabit. But at the end of the day, like, we read these stories because they speak to us. They speak to us on an emotional level, and I think Jim Starlin is a reader who innately understands that. So, if anything, I mean, I don't know if it necessarily made me a bigger fan of his, but I'm already a pretty big fan of his. So he didn't have anything to prove to me. What I found most rewarding about this was just what he was saying with it, and his ability to engage emotion in the storytelling, at least, when you're talking just about the writing. But of course, that inevitably gets into conversations about the Marvel method and what is actually chosen to convey the meaning of the story at the end of the day. So it's just fun all around. It's a good time capsule for what comics of the Bronze Age in particular could do if they were given enough latitude to do so.
Right on. All right, El Corazon, you're up next. Your kind of final thoughts on the series here.
Well, since you brought up the Batman, the Starlin,
I was asked the same thing.
Yeah, the familiarity that I have with him outside of like the Infinity stuff is, 10 Nights of the Beast, and I was almost at A Lonely Place of Dying, but I meant Death in the Family, and that's very, very grounded. I mean, we're dealing with like the politics of the 80s in those comics, and a person who has a utility belt and no powers, and to read these stories that came 20 years before, and it's like his imagination is just unfettered, and like there's like talking broccoli and a mouth with eyes and any kind of weird thing he could imagine, like he would just throw it on the page as like a background character. And it speaks to his inventiveness as a writer and how compelling he can make it. And it definitely I feel like there's a stronger kinship with Adam Warlock and the Silver Surfer now. Having read these issues, I can see the parallels a little bit more, how they've got like this kind of just very tortured and overwrought sense of like their place in the universe and where they fit in, and they're always thinking about things deeply, and it kind of dovetails nicely to what I was familiar with. So it was a lot of fun to read these, and it kind of has me wanting to keep going, and I never finished the Infinity Saga stuff. I kind of dipped out somewhere.
I haven't read all of it myself. I've read a good chunk of it,
I know Gauntlet fairly well, and it was issue 4 that Ron Lim came in and took over from Perez.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So now I kind of want to keep. Now that I've got all this in the back of my head, I kind of want to jump into those right now, just for my own edification. Hey, so thank you, Zach. I appreciate your pick.
Yeah, Zach, there you go. And you know what? And without Infinity War, we never get Doppelganger.
That's true.
I love Doppelganger. He's the best.
I don't own it, but that's a dope looking figure, man.
I own it. I got that. I saw that came out. I'm like, I am getting that mother effer as soon as it comes out, and I did. So I'm glad I did. Zach, your final thoughts. You suggested the series, but yeah, you're kind of anything you want to add before we head out?
I guess I pretty much said what I want to say, but I would say if you're interested in Jim Starlin, if you want to check out some more like his Captain Marvel run, and then also the death of Captain Marvel graphic novel is kind of like another minor story that kind of picks up from here, because it has like the stone Thanos that from the end of this series, so that's really good. And it just is like the previous Chris and Javi were saying, like I love the pure imagination that he's able to come out with, and there's so much of this that I think is like a singular voice, even though he's collaborating with people. He's really able to like take what's in his head and put it on the page and make that really fascinating for someone to look at. So I think that's super valuable, and I'm glad you guys had a good time, because it was great for me to reread it. So
no, it was great. I'm glad. I've wanted to read this. I got this for about last year or a couple of years ago, and I've been wanting to read it for a while, and I'm glad I saw that when your list. I'm like, that's it. So, because I love Starlin, so I mean, it's like that's a no brainer. So, yeah, man, Zach, we'll have to have you on absolutely again. You know, I'll be hitting you up with ideas. Probably your list, obviously, I'll be looking at that. But I might make you read some stuff too, like maybe you're not used to. We'll see.
That's fine.
We'll see.
Bring it on.
If you're down, if you're open to it, I'll hit you up with it. So, yeah, tell us where people can follow you on your social media platforms, whatever you want to promote, all that jazz.
For me, it's just Zach Mountain on Twitter. Yeah, that's all. That's it for me.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, on X, formerly Twitter. Yeah, go check him out there. Zach
right.
always. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I hate it. I hate it. We all hate it. El Corazon, thank you for taking your time out of your busy, stressful day to make you read Warlock comics and say I took you away from your family. You're like, hold on, let me say goodnight to my family. I'm just like, God damn it, Javi, that make me feel bad. Oh, no, God damn it.
You're going to bed, man. It's all good.
Oh, that's right. We're going to bed, Javi. Can't be mad at me.
And
yeah, go ahead.
I'm mad.
All right. Well, promote yourself, sir. Tell everyone where you can find you. All that jazz.
At Javi True on Twitter, BatmanOnFilm.com, reviewing Catwoman. You think I'd know this by now. Catwoman, Batman, the Brave and the Bold, the mediocre Batman and Robin, Batman Gargoyle of Gotham, which is really good. I think that's all I'm
reviewing.
First issue's okay. And then Batman animation episodes on the website as well. JamesBondDossier.com. I finally started writing the review for the Garth Ennis first issue, which is interesting. And I've got a Flash YouTube channel, Up to Speed with Wally West. And I was just on From Tailors with Love on Pete Brooker's podcast. And I'm on 2 episodes, and we talk minute 7 and minute 8 from Casino Royale. We just take that 1 minute of the movie and break it down and have a good conversation about it. So
I'm
all over the place. On Batman, Spidey Dude experience tomorrow night.
Yeah,
YouTube 8:30 Central. Ultimate Spider-Man #2 conversation.
I need to read that. I'm so behind on comics. So behind on comics, which I know.
So
I know.
good.
Listen.
Good.
Okay, I'll get to it. I got to read Gang War first. I got to get that out of the way. I just got to get it out of the way.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. You have to get it out of the way to get to the way.
I hear you. Just for the record, Garth Ennis doing Bond.
It's a very Garth Ennis opening.
Yeah, Garth Ennis is like, how can I hate James Bond and subvert everyone's expectations and make this very obnoxious? Here. I'll do something crazy and stupid. I'm just waiting for it. Sorry. Garth Ennis does not do it for me. Sorry.
It depends. He wrote a pretty good Superman when he showed up in the pages of Hitman.
What if I made James Bond real violent like? What if I had him kill a bunch of nuns, right? Wouldn't that be something?
He kills an old lady in a wheelchair. Spoilers.
Thank you.
Oh, that's very good. He didn't even read it. He didn't even read it. Oh my god! He gets it, and then
he had it coming though.
He likes what he likes, you know. I'll say that for him.
Yes, God. Anyway, I'll have a one day. I know Welcome Back, Frank is a real classic. I do have his Vietnam Punisher prequel. I want to read eventually, which looks interesting. So
yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah.
I
used to have it. Yeah.
I know he's a good, talented writer, but the stuff I've read, the big stuff I've read of his, I've been not impressed and felt very let down.
You should read his Marvel Knights Punisher before you read the Max stuff.
Welcome Back, Frank. I'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there.
The bit that he did with C4 and the Hulk is still one of my favorites.
Okay. We will do a comic book masterpiece over the Punisher because that Punisher has always been well regarded by people. So we'll have to do that one day.
Omnibus needs to go back into print.
It'll happen eventually. Chris.
At Chris Clow, ChrisClow on various forms of social media.
Yes,
and
various.
We'll be coming back for another episode of Knights Never Die pretty soon. We just have to get the scheduling sorted, and then we're gonna wrap up Batman and Son before we.
I've been waiting.
Move on to Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth. Right before we jump into The Clown at Midnight, that I think Paul will hate, but maybe I'll be surprised.
Is it the prose issue?
Yeah,
I love that issue, man.
Yep.
I love it.
Not reading it.
You guys complain about it, but I
many
love
words.
Sorry.
the poetic way that Grant Morrison writes prose.
I like Grant Morrison. I'm not reading a comic of prose. Ain't doing it. It's called the kids' book. Ain't
You
doing
did
it.
on
Sorry.
these. There was a whole prose section in
For
one of the
one page.
bios.
For one page.
There's
Anyway,
a lot of text packed onto that page.
I will look at the pictures, and I'm hoping the artist can do a good job of doing the job of what a comic artist and a comic is supposed to do.
Here's what I hope. I hope that when you do read that issue, you put aside in your brain, I hate the prose, and actually process the words that are there to take the meaning of the story.
One day I'll give you my
That's
brain,
what I
and you'll
hope.
understand why I hate prose. Anyway, there you go. One day that will
I don't
happen.
know if I want to go in there.
You don't want this brain, but I'm just saying I will make you learn. All right, follow us. No one's watching this far. Who knows? But anyway, Chris,
Eric
why don't
is.
you take Eric's he's loyal. I appreciate Eric.
Eric's
Chris, why don't
baller.
you take us out? He is a baller.
Read more comics.
Good night, y'all.